One of the terms that has suddenly caught the attention of podcasters is branded podcasting. But what is branded podcasting? And what are the things about branded podcasting that you should know as an individual and as a brand? We will discuss all of this in this week's episode of the Podcasting University, your go-to resource for everything on podcasting. Welcome to the Podcasting University. Looking for help on starting your own podcast? Then this is the place to be. We will help you with everything from selecting your topic to promoting and monetizing your podcast in the simplest language possible. Listen to other podcasters who've been through the grind and learn from them as we interview them every week. You can find more details on thepodcastinguniversity.com. Hello and welcome to episode 62 of the Podcasting University. In this episode, we'll be discussing more about branded podcasting. In fact, we'll be discussing branded podcasting in much more detail in a series of episodes that I'll be releasing in the next few weeks that are consumable in bite-sized discussions. We'll also be bringing in some other hosts of a few branded podcasts and hear from them how podcasting has worked for them or how it has not worked for them. And while we are on that, don't forget to tune in the next week for the first of this series of discussions that I will have on branded podcasting. I have a guest who has seen how branded podcasts can work for brands. He'll be joining me on the show the next week and talking to us more about branded podcasting. But first, let me ask you a question. Did you know that McDonald's had a podcast by the name of The Sauce? If not, then do check it out. It is worth listening to. And you will get a different perspective to how a podcast can be used for a specific purpose. In the early 2000s, blogging had taken off and the world had started realizing the importance of written long-form content. Companies and brands too realized how a blog post could help them get more eyeballs to their brands and products. And there started the addition of a blog to every company website. It is unlikely that you won't find a blog section in a company website today. But as content generation became more and more demanding and difficult, blogging became a challenge, and businesses slowly started to move away from blogging. But there was one thing that was very clear. A platform where the brand can tell a story around their brand, around their products and consumers was the easiest way they could get additional attention and create awareness for this brand. As content marketing changed forms from long-form content in the form of blogs to videos and into micro-content in the form of social media, brands adapted to it. But the void that blogging had left was still there. It was not filled. But now, with podcasting becoming the next big thing, there is a good chance that this void can be filled. And branded podcasts is what can do this job. With high engagement and retention rates, podcasting has everything that is required to build brand awareness. So, why shouldn't companies look at podcasts? Coming back to what is a branded podcast, the simple definition states that a branded podcast is a kind of podcast that is created by a brand with a specific marketing objective in mind. While this objective might necessarily not be promotional in nature, this surely ties into the brand's overall objective and messaging. But then, the question is, why should brands use a podcast as a medium to create awareness? It is because stories are to be told and shouldn't be left to be read by the audience. Stories are best consumed when it is narrated either in audio or video formats. And stories are what can generate inquisitiveness in an audience, intrigue them, and create an awareness for anything. Like in this case, a brand. With that platform being set, it is easy to pitch the case in favor of podcasting, primarily because of the cost involved. The cost of creation in the case of a video is much higher than in the case of an audio. So, Instead of answering the question as to why should brands use a podcast as a medium to create awareness, I would answer that with another question as to why shouldn't brand use podcasting as a medium to create awareness. In 2018, Fast Company had called branded podcasts the ads that people actually want to listen to. And it is true. The stats prove this. The stats proves that people are more likely to buy a product that is recommended in a podcast, or a brand that is being spoken about in a podcast is more likely to be retained and shopped at by listeners. All of this data is hugely in favor of podcasts, and there is no reason why brands shouldn't be taking up podcasts to create awareness for their products. Now, all this while we've been talking about creating awareness, but it is also important to note that podcasting is more than a medium to create awareness. It can in fact help you with generating leads for your business, with getting sales, and even with internal communications. That's right, with internal communications. How? Now, these are the things that we'll be discussing in the coming weeks with very specific examples. While you wait for the next episodes, I would recommend that you go and check out The Sauce, which is a 3-episode podcast that McDonald's did some time back. Listen to it, and if you can identify the objective with which it was created, drop me a message to dilip@thepodcastinguniversity.com with your opinion about the objective, and I would like to hear from you. You can also send me a direct message on Instagram by following me at Podcasting University. I'm available at Podcasting University on Instagram. So don't forget to follow me there and send me a direct message with what you think is the message that McDonald's wanted to communicate with their podcast, The Sauce. And before I leave you there, did you know that we had done a branded podcast long back in early 2019 for a masala brand? You can search for Tadka Lagake in your favorite podcasting platform and give it a listen. It was a 5-part podcast that we had done for a masala brand, and yes, that was to create awareness, generate awareness for the brand. So we'll be discussing more about branded podcasts in the next couple of weeks, but the next week I have a very interesting guest who is going to talk to us about branded podcasts. So don't forget to tune in to the show the next week. That's all that I have for this episode. I'll be back again the next week with more discussions around branded podcasting. Until then, keep listening to the Podcasting University. You can visit thepodcastinguniversity.com for the show notes, the resources, and a printable transcript for this episode. You will also be able to join my free 10-day course on getting started with a podcast, which is free. If you're new to podcast, then this is a course where you need to start. The Podcasting University is available on pretty much all podcasting platforms. You can search your favorite platform with The Podcasting University or even with podcasting tips to find The Podcasting University in there. You will also be able to find the links to the major platforms on thepodcastinguniversity.com/62. That is thepodcastinguniversity.com/62. Don't forget to visit there and check out the show notes as well. That's all that I have for this week. Keep listening to the Podcasting University. I'll be back again the next week. Until then, you all have a wonderful rest of the week.